King's Dominion is currently my favorite theme park I've ever been to. Today I will be ranking up the top 10 coasters at the park, excluding the Planet Snoopy coasters and Apple's Apple for simplicity. I had the opportunity to visit the park this past Monday, and I'll be honest, it was a very successful day. I rode Rapter for the first time, got a lot of rides on Pantherian, and while Flight of Fear was unfortunately closed, it was still very fun to go as always. Without further ado, let's get into the list. At number 10 is Reptilian, the Mock Rides bobsled coaster. I'll be honest, I haven't ran this since 2024 during my first visit to the park, but I'm sure I'll probably get back on it at some point this summer. Honestly, from what I remember, this thing was pretty shaky, but it wasn't terrible. The turns were pretty fun, and it's great for families. Alright, this may surprise some people, but coming in at number 9 is Tumbili. Now, since my last King's Dominion ranking video, my opinions have changed dramatically on this ride, and honestly, it all just depends on what day it is and where you sit. This ride literally changes every single time. Sometimes it's flip central, sometimes it doesn't flip, and sometimes it's head slam central. It is quite fun when it's super flippy, I'll admit. However, again, it's really a coin toss on whether the ride is good or not, because it's so temperamental all the time. At number 8 is Backlot Stunt Coaster, the Premier Rides family launch coaster. Now this is one that I did ride during my last visit in the front row. Unfortunately, it did make me pretty nauseous, but that was entirely my fault since I didn't take my nausea medication because for some reason I thought I didn't need it after I skipped it last visit. Nausea aside, mostly everything I said about this ride still applies from last time. Yes, the unpadded seats still suck. Yes, the launch is honestly surprising, albeit not as good as Flight of Fears. And yes, the ride still very much sticks out like a sore thumb aesthetically. However, it's not a terrible ride, you just really have to brace yourself against the seats, because they can hurt a lot. And number 7 is Racer 75, the classic racing coaster that actually wasn't racing when I just went, since only the north side was open. But I do remember that both sides were open, and it was racing during summer and haunt, so I guess it just runs one side during the spring. This ride honestly gave decent airtime and really wasn't that rough. Obviously it wasn't the smoothest ride in the world, but it's nowhere near the roughest ride at the park. It's also the one and only roller coaster I've ridden that has appeared in a movie that I've seen. As an avid cinephile with a Letterboxd account that you should totally go check out, linked in the channel description, this ride earns my badge of appreciation because it's a classic and it's in a movie and it's really cool. It is very much a classic ride because it's old and stuff. At number 6 we have Dominator, the world's longest floorless coaster. Now, I don't know if I just rode this on a bad day, but my last 2 rides on it were not very good. The layout itself is great, I'll give it that. However, it is not a smooth ride in the slightest. Maybe the front few rows it's smoother and maybe I just rode on a bad day, but I really don't know. I also got a rain ride on it, so that was fun. The loop provided the usual great hang time, and I honestly really hope I just caught it on a bad day because I really do love this thing. And I'm going to assume it's also because the train was quite empty. So maybe an emptier train causes a rougher ride since the less weight you put on a train, the slower it goes or something. I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but I'm willing to give this another chance next time. And number 5 is Rapterra, the new for 2025 launched wing coaster that is probably one of the most polarizing roller coasters I've ever ridden. Half the people that ride it love it, while the other half of the people say it's the worst ride they have ever ridden, and it's unbearably rough. To be fair, my opinion of the ride has kind of bounced up and down over time. Get it? The last ride I got was in row 2, in an inside seat for the first time ever, and honestly, I was a little disappointed. For some reason, I expected the ride to be completely glass smooth in the inside seat, which is 100% on me, and I should have set my expectations right. Because while it isn't as terrible as the outside seats, it's still not the best. The coaster's still decently intense and fun, but the roughness definitely takes away from it a bit. At least it wasn't as bad as in the back row. Overall, I'm not the biggest fan, and I really hope they try to fix the roughness, although I'm not sure they will, because, it's an existing roller coaster. I don't think they would really. They could have done it in the off season, and they didn't. I mean, maybe they did, but it's not noticeable if they did, so I don't know if they would try to fix it now. Oh boy, here we go. Strap in, because from here on out, this list is going to get highly controversial. To be fair, every one of these next 4 coasters all comfortably sit in my top 10 overall. But anyway, at number 4 is Twisted Timbers, still a very insane ride. I will say the airtime wasn't as strong as previous rides I had on it, but I'm sure it was just because it was naturally running slower due to it not being summer yet, and therefore not as hot. To be fair, it was a full train and the airtime was still good. It just wasn't as crazy as I remembered it being. I'm 100% certain they'll be back to giving fantastic airtime once the summer months roll around. And the barrel roll drop was good as always, same with the cutback, and the 3 airtime hills in a row are never not awesome. I really love this ride, same with the next 3 on this list, and it's still one of my favorites. Just not as good as it's been running previously. At number 3 is Grizzly, so this is kind of interesting. My one ride I got on this thing last time I went was probably the best ride I've ever gotten on it. Here's how it went. I sat in the second to last row, which is my go-to for this ride, and clicked my lap bar down 1 click. I thought in my head that there was no way on earth they were going to let me ride like this, but lo and behold, ride operator comes by and pulls up on the lap bar, not even bothering to push it down even a click. And so I leave the station with 1 measly click on my lap bar, which translates to approximately 2 full fists length of room in between my knees and the lap bar. It was ridiculous. When we reached the top of that hill, I put my hands up without thinking, and that drop was unbelievable. I 100% stood up, like fully out of the seat. I know I usually use the phrase slam into my seat while describing big drops like Fury or Thunderstriker or whatever. When we hit that valley, I actually slammed into the seat. Like, actually, literally slammed into the seat. And I accidentally pushed my lap bar down a few more clicks because my hands were, slamming down too. But so, I mean, it saved my life, I guess. The rest of the ride was great, as always, and the final turn is insane with the amount of laterals. I would have totally gotten more rides, but unfortunately it was on 1 train, therefore turning a station wait into a 15-minute wait. And number 2 is Flight of Fear, which unfortunately was closed when I went, but knowing my experiences from last summer, I am fairly certain that it's still number 2 in the park. I'm not thrilled about the closure, especially since I really wish they would have said something before the park opened on their socials. With Pantherian last year, at least they announced it beforehand in an official statement, albeit literally on the day of pass holder preview. But for this, they just kind of put it on the scheduled ride closures page and then didn't say anything. And then apparently, I don't know, they're being super quiet about it. But anyway, back to Fly of Fear. Everything I've said previously about this ride most likely still applies. The launch is fantastic, the Cobra roll is forceful, and even with the mid-course, the ride still feels blazingly fast near the end. And yes, it's still my number 4 coaster overall. I did see that they have new merch for it this year, however I held off from buying it in case they introduce more once the ride reopens. Hopefully when it does reopen, they haven't changed much, especially the launch, since it's the best part. And here we go. To no one's surprise, the best coaster at King's Dominion is Pantherian. The ride that is constantly flipping between Fury 325 is my number 1 spot overall. As I said in the Carowinds video, I cannot wait to go to Kings Island and Cedar Point so I can finally have a solidified number 1 and not have it constantly switching between 2 incredible giga coasters. I'll be honest, I think I slightly prefer Fury, and here's why. Pantherian is fantastic. It's smooth, somewhat re-rideable, if you take your nausea medication unlike me, and it's mind-numbingly intense. Fury, however, has better restraints, more sentimental value for me, and is so much more reliable. Honestly, I can see the argument for either of these being better, but for me, Fury takes it. It's not to say Pantherian is a bad ride, as it was still running fantastic when I last went. And all 4 of my rides were incredible, except for this one. And with that, that is my ranking of the top 10 best coasters at King's Dominion. Did you agree with my list? Did you disagree? Post those thoughts in the comments below, and of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more content in the future. I'll see you next time.